Welcome to our podcast. We're going to be talking about a very sensitive issue, and we want to address some recent events that are affecting the real estate market. And I am just first very grateful to my broker, Matt, for allowing us this opportunity to talk on this subject. And I also want to thank Carla Walker, my guest, who is a mortgage lender, and she's going to give some insight as well. So before we begin, I just want to kind of introduce myself a little bit. I've been married for 30 years, have 4 girls, 1 granddaughter on the way, and I believe that's all the credentials I need to know everything in the world. But
exactly, you're a mom.
I'm a mom. I'm an expert. But honestly, I wanted to kind of talk about my professional career path that led me over to the real estate market. Originally, I went to school. I went to Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I studied communications and marketing, and then began my career in the financial institution in the banking industry. And then when we moved down here to Florida, went into the hospitality business, started doing vacation home ownership, and then eventually went into timeshare. Could not stand behind that market, but that's a whole another subject. So a few years ago, my passion was really to do real estate. Prayed about it. God opened the opportunity for me to be able to dedicate my time to do the studying, because it's a lot to study for that. And I had the support of my husband, and became a real estate agent, licensed real estate agent. So love it. I feel like all of the worlds that I've been in have combined into one. So that's my little story, and I wanted to have you share a little bit about your background.
Well, thank you, and greetings to everyone who is watching, or if you're just seeing the audio portion of it, whichever one it is. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you, Dana, for the opportunity, and also the broker here. What's his name?
Matt.
I forgot.
Matt Wheatley.
I was going to say Wheatley, but I didn't want to do that. For Wheatley. So I am Carla Walker, and I am a licensed loan officer here in the state of Florida, and I am currently originating loans through Van Dyke Mortgage, which is an incredible mortgage company. And although I am here sharing, I am not sharing particularly their views. So let me give my disclaimer. I'm not here representing them, but I am representing myself. So let's just make sure we get that clear, right? Safety. But what led me into the industry, Dana, was through experience. My husband and I bought our first home. I think it was back in 2003, if I'm correct, and we saw just the profitability. I'll tell you, that was right before the market crashed, and I know I may be going a little bit ahead, but just about my testimony. So I became interested because I had an experience that worked well. Now, my husband's father owns several properties, and he always has. Like, he literally bought up his whole block. So
goodness.
In another state. So we've always had an interest in it. And so when we bought our first home, and then we sold it, and then we bought another home, and then we sold it, and we're just really getting into it, my husband became a real estate professional, like yourself. And I found myself helping a lot of the clients to understand what they needed to do in order to qualify for a mortgage, based on the fact that I had already purchased several homes, and the fact that my husband was an agent. And so as I was helping them and coaching them, I said, you know what?
I can do this.
This makes sense. And it does make sense to me. Mortgages make sense to me. I understand it. It's a concept that works well with my brain. Now, if you ask me to be a doctor or something else, it's not going to be successful. But mortgages just really made sense to me. And I said, well, this seems to come as a natural for me. And so that's how I got involved. I went to school, and I became a licensed loan officer, and here I am today, about 4 years into the industry, and I've had the opportunity to work in front of the scenes as a loan officer, and also in post-closing and pre-funding quality control. So I've been able to see the loan files when they start, and I was also able to see them to the end, and I'm currently in class now for underwriting. So
that is amazing.
That's who I am.
I love it, love it, love it. So part of the reason why I wanted to talk to you today was recently there was the Bank of America came up with a program.
Yes.
And it's caused a little bit of a rustle out there, because it says that it's for, well, I thought it was for helping minorities. And when you talk about helping minorities, first you're like, well, there's definitely a need that needs to be addressed, and that's good that they're addressing the need. But doesn't that kind of almost seem like it's violating Fair Housing Act, because you're putting one ethnicity over another, so to speak? So is it even fair? How does that even work? And I just want to get your idea of that from the lender's point of view.
Yes, so I've had several people and several agents ask my opinion about it, and when you first read the information that's posted online, I did a Google search and I did not really find anything concrete on Bank of America's website that gave me details about more specifics of the loan. So, because I'm a loan officer, I'm looking for specifics, I'm looking for details. I want to read the fine print.
Of course.
So I didn't see any fine print. So one of my thought processes was, you're correct. We can't violate different laws that have come into place to make sure there's equal opportunity and to make sure that we are being correct with extending credit to everyone without restriction. So we know that Bank of America is a large bank, and we know that they're pretty smart people, we would say,
Yes.
right? So we have to understand that they're doing things that's not going to, well, we hope that they're doing things that's, not going to bring any type of negativity or any type of, unfair or unjust practices upon them as an organization. So when I read, I think, if I'm not quoting this incorrectly, I think it was a CNN report that I read online. The inaccuracy about what we have heard is that it is for Black or minorities, and that is incorrect.
Okay.
Because as I read further, the loan program does not stipulate race.
Oh.
You can be of any gender. See, Bank of America's smart.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Just to say only, Caucasians can do this. We're not doing that today. So it's not specific to just Blacks or Hispanics. The loan applicant can be anyone of any race.
Okay.
The key to the program is the demographics in the regional area. So if you read the report, there's 5 major cities that they're focusing on. I know Miami is one, and there's some other ones. So it's the demographics, and it's the area that the loan is more specifically tied to, not the race of the borrower.
Okay, not the race of the borrower. But what do they use for the demographics? Is that the racial makeup of that particular community? Is that what they're using?
And that's what we don't know specifically, because when we do loans, we can look at different areas, and different areas mean different things. Some areas have more marketability. So what I've understood from reading it is that it is in areas that are more maybe lower income, or areas that have already a high percentage of Hispanics or Blacks either renting in that area, because the whole goal is for them to be homeowners. So they can't be homeowners in that area, because the purpose is so they can purchase homes in that area. So they either have a high rental market value in that area. So we don't know zip codes or anything of that nature. We just have the 5 cities that was listed. And so, and that's great, and that's wonderful if we can qualify for it. But one of the things that we've also talked about and kicked around is the possibility of creating another wheel of gentrification, because if the people who are there really can't qualify for the loan,
they're not going to be able to stay.
They're not going to be able to stay. And maybe the reason why they're renting is that they cannot afford to buy. Because for other reasons.
Exactly.
So, I mean, there's a lot of thought processes that go on into that, but those are some initial ones that I looked at.
I got you. Can you explain a little bit about what gentrification is, in case people don't know exactly what that means?
Yeah, so it's just basically this recycle of neighborhood is the way I see it. So the people who cannot afford to live there are driven out by the people who can afford to own the real estate there. And so we've seen this over and over again. I know we talked about this personally a couple of days ago, and that's basically what it is. Like, I can live here, but I cannot afford to own here.
Yeah.
So then the people who can afford to own there can then now own those homes, and then they can start the process of moving the people who can only afford to live there out of there. And they have to find another place to go, because when we buy real estate is value.
Yes, it is.
So we're going to make sure we're going to put the money into it. We're going to improve it. And so now I'm going to price you out, because now what can I do? I can raise the rent to such a degree that you cannot afford to pay me rent there.
Exactly.
And then I can start moving in my family members or people who can afford this type. And then now what I've done is I've built some wealth within myself and increasing my value
Exactly.
by buying something at a lower cost, investing into it, increasing the value. So now I have equity. So that's basically what it is. And so we've seen this happen in several
Time
cities.
and time again.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So Bank of America, where I appreciate the thought process behind it, there is definitely a disparity, which I definitely want to talk about that, because it is something that has to be addressed. There is a low percentage of Black home ownership in America, and I guess the bank is trying to figure out a way to address that. Don't know if that's the best way. We want to see if there's some other solutions or options that's out there. I just want to read some statistics. NAR, which is the National Association of Realtors, they said the home ownership rate gap between white and Black households grew even further in 2020. So according to their statistics, U.S. home ownership rate experienced the largest increase on record, though Black home ownership remained lower than a decade ago. And we know, especially being a mortgage lender, home ownership is the principal source of wealth creation. So if we are not even 50% of Black households are homeowners, how are we ever going to bridge that gap? How are we going to bridge that gap? So I want to talk about what are some of the reasons why there is even that gap that's there to address that. What are some thoughts that you might have on that?
Yes, a lot of thoughts. The first one primarily, as I stated in the opening introductions, my father-in-law owned real estate and just bought houses and literally bought up, he and his wife, a city block. They didn't like their neighbors, so they bought their homes.
That's the way to do it.
It's one way to do it.
That's one way to do it.
But with all of that experience and knowledge, he did not communicate any of that to his son.
Oh, okay.
So I think one of the key elements that could cause the Black home ownership to be lower is that we just don't have the information.
I agree.
We're not taught. It could seem very challenging. It could seem very intimidating. Yeah. And so that's one element I do believe is a factor.
I definitely agree with it. My grandparents never owned a home. My parents were the first to own homes in the 80s. That's when everybody was doing fantastic. Parents bought a beautiful home, spent lots of money on the home, bought brand new cars, got a divorce, capital gains. During that time, they didn't know about the capital gains. IRS came looking for them. Yes. I can tell the story now because it's been paid, but made some really, really poor choices. And unfortunately for my mother, she never ever owned. After they divorced, she became a renter. She was never able to build back up that wealth that she had. So I believe it was, never having and then getting that, but not having the education on what to do when you have, and not buying the newest and the biggest and the brightest. And I think that's something, and it starts with our generation. They're watching these videos and, and they see life as this, you know what I mean? And life is not like that. It's small steps.
Yeah, you said something, and this might ruffle some feathers.
Go ahead, girl.
Because it brought a thought process to me. You said your grandparents owned home.
No, didn't.
Didn't own a home. So then your parents did.
Yeah.
I think one of the key things too, when you talk about home ownership, we have to talk about income and the ability. I think in our community, we have so many single parent households.
Yes.
And we have grandparents that are raising children. And
yes.
So I think economically, it's Lord help us, it's just been so interesting for us, because when you need two incomes to purchase a home. Now, we know today things are a lot different. Yeah. People are out here, they're getting their bags, they're getting their money, single mothers are making it happen. But I think we lost a little bit there in the power of unity and being able to accomplish something together.
I love that. And a lot of things we know, government programs that came out, and I understand that there's needs for it, but you can't become dependent on that. Yes. And I always use this example. My best friend is from Cuba. Her parents came here, didn't speak the language or anything, and they were offered, and they didn't want to take anything from the government because she's older than me. They were there the day the government took their business. So he worked 3 jobs. But before he passed away, he had owned 2 or 3 homes. So I think it's also that mentality of working for yourself, not expecting the government. It really shouldn't be the government's job to support us. We need to work on our own, and there's a satisfaction of doing it for yourself.
Correct.
But how do we get to that point? One thing I wanted to ask you, what do you think about multiple family members buying a house together?
Okay, good question. Alrighty now.
Can grandmama buy the house with you?
We're talking about working together. Now, in theory, it is an incredible concept.
Okay.
When you look at other races and you see when they come together for enterprise and they are in, it's so funny. There's this one Chinese restaurant that my husband and I would love to go to, and the daughters were always there and they were serving us, and they were, it was family oriented.
Yep.
So it's a concept that other ethnicities have learned to work well.
Yes.
And we see it also in the housing industry as well. There are other ethnicities that will come together jointly and purchase a home and live together. I think it is possible, but I do think that it requires a certain person, and it requires everyone to really to understand what it means, because taking on a community debt is a community debt, and so we're only as strong as as the weakest link.
Exactly. So if someone doesn't carry their weight,
right,
everybody suffers.
Right, we all suffer.
Okay.
So we really have to be selfless when we come into partnerships like that. We have to make sure that we're doing what's best for the other person, because we realize it's more than just myself that's on the line. But the concept itself is great. My husband and I have thought about it, but our children don't want to do it. So they're like, nah.
They don't want to do it.
We've been in your house too long. We're getting out of here. But we thought about, I was going to say compound, but that's not a good word. Estates, land. And so we all come together, and you can have your house on this portion of the acreage, that house on that portion, but we're all sharing the cost of it. So it's not a bad idea. It just is going to require wisdom, and we have to do the right thing.
Okay. So when you say, of course, with the education aspect of home ownership, how do people even get that? Where do they get that from? If you weren't taught from your grandmama and you don't know, and you're just sitting and you're just stuck and you're watching, everybody has their own opinion. How do they even start to even get educated about purchasing a home?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, pardon me. I think one of the important things is, we can either allow our circumstances to determine our future, or we can do something about it. Ooh. And so what I lack, I have to pursue.
Ooh! That's good.
Yeah, what we lack, we have to pursue. So I wanted to have more money. So I pursued other interests, other jobs. And so it really, part of it starts with an inward thing.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because you can lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink. That type of thing. So what you lack, you pursue. So then you make yourself get online, and we Google everything. Let's use social media and internet to get something positive.
I love it.
Right? I don't need to watch TikTok all day long. It's too much anyway.
Too much.
It's way too much. So then you go to your bank. I mean, most of us do have banking accounts.
That's true.
We put our money in someone's bank. Go ahead and talk to those people. Reach out to your current your lenders in your area. And find someone that you can trust and get the information.
I like that.
And if you don't know if you feel like your information is not the best or clear, well, there's other resources. You don't just stop at one place. We eat at 5 different restaurants.
That's right. That's good.
One has chicken better than the other. It's the one I like. I'm going to go there for the chicken. So we have to do your due diligence and reach out to people and get the information.
I like that. Now, something that I did see when it was talking about black home ownership, the denial rates were very high for mortgage applications. And a couple of the reasons why was a debt to income ratio, low credit score, and also a lot of student loan debt. I will say for myself, that student loan debt, I didn't know what I was signing. Mama just told me to sign it. I didn't know what I was signing. And I think there's not a lot of education on that student loan. And I don't understand, too. It's like they give you thousands of dollars with no credit check or income. And then you're stuck with this, and you got $400 and $500 payments, and you're trying. How do you even deal with that, with even taking on that kind of debt?
Yeah. Wow. That's a powerful question. So it's amazing how in the United States, you want me to pay $50,000 to make $51,000 a year.
Exactly.
It's not math. It doesn't add up. And unfortunately, and I've experienced this with my own children. Our children are, college degree, master degree, and I have one who's back in school for her doctorate.
Ooh.
And unfortunately, and without ruffling too many more feathers here, our daughter was able to get grants, a myriad of grants.
Okay.
So much grant money that she had to pay taxes.
Wow.
But our black male was not given the grants. The loans were just thrown. Now I said, this is a coincidence, right? Coincidence. So that was our older set. So our younger set were actually twins, male, female.
Same thing?
Same thing. And there's 10 years difference between the two of them.
Wow.
And I said, now is this a coincidence, or is there something with this? I don't know. It's just my experience. So you're correct. We are giving these student loans, but because we're not taught great money management from our home, we'll take them. And I know people personally that have not used them specifically for the education. We're using them to pay our bills, and we're using that to you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so the greater financial knowledge and education that we can receive, the better we can navigate through the student loans, because they're not all bad.
No, they're not.
But we need to know, how much is affordable for me, especially for my degree. And then when we take 6, 7, 8 years to complete a course of study, prolonging our time, in school, because some people are just professional students.
They are.
Ever learning. So, that's kind of what it is. And unfortunately, we are not taught, and we don't have the knowledge from our parents. I know none of my parents were college educated. They did teach me how to balance a checkbook because my mother was in finance.
Oh, okay.
But that was it. It's just don't spend more than what you have, because, you're going to owe the bank, basically.
Exactly.
So I think just the knowledge, and we're not taught, and we have to do better.
We have to do better. We have to take on that personal responsibility, and that's something that you and I both talked about. We are not victims at all.
Right.
And even though there is this disparity, it doesn't mean that it's not possible, because we're living proof. Your in-laws are living proof that it's possible. But we definitely want the education out there. We believe God's put us in this position so that we can educate those in our community, so that we can experience. We're in one of the greatest countries in the world. We really are. It has this, but it's one of the greatest countries in the world, the best opportunity for anybody to succeed. And we just definitely want to see that for our community. That's kind of our burden, and why we're coming together talking about this. Credit scores. How can someone fix their credit scores? I mean, they've just made a mess. And that's right here all the time from people when they're looking to purchase, and they always want to do it themselves. I got to pay off a few things. I got to do it, and they sometimes mess themselves up. And so how do they even address that with a credit score and fix it? Is there help out there for them?
There is help out there, and it's become a little predatory with the helping, because you have people that are paying credit repair companies to repair their credit, and they're really not doing it, and they're paying them monthly. But you bring up another key element to what we are lacking in knowledge-wise is the importance of credit.
Important.
My parents never said one doohickey to me about what a credit score was. I had no clue of what it meant. Not even after being offered credit cards, and that's another thing that happens when children go to college.
Come after you.
I said to myself, because our youngest kids still live at, one of them lives at home now. The other one just left. So they were doing school online. And do you know how many advertisements that would come in the mail for them to get a credit card? Yep. Now, wait a minute, credit card company. This person has no money. This person
they living at home.
Working part-time, making $13 an hour. Why are you sending them a credit card application?
Yes.
Right? Without any knowledge about what it means. But then again, like I said, what we lack, we have to pursue. So I think that because we don't know what credit really is, how it really does affect us in everything from car insurance, from the
monthly payments,
all those important things. Now, we don't have that when we're young and we're teenagers, so we're not paying the light bill and things of that nature, because they run your credit too. You know what I mean? So we just don't know.
We don't know.
And these conversations, in these times of us coming together and putting it out there and creating valid resources. The first thing you can do is you can go to myannualcreditreport.com. That's myannual, as in the year, ANNUAL, creditreport.com, and you can pull your own credit report once a year for free.
Did not know that. Wow, that's awesome.
Once a year for free. You can go ahead and pull it and look at it and see what it does. But there's more to it. We have to be taught about how credit is rated. and the different FICO scoring measures. So it is a lot to it, but I would say the first thing I would do is I would go ahead and pull my credit report, and I would get with someone who understands credit, who works in that area. Do your research. We research everything, read the reviews and find out whether or not this person is going to rip you off or
exactly.
not.
Yeah.
And then start there. And also starting with your bank. They have resources there for you. Tell them, hey, listen, I want to get my credit together. We're giving these people our money every month, and we got these direct deposits. Let's take advantage of whatever they offer.
That's very good. Now, it's not bad for them to get a credit card, right? If they get one, if they have a small balance and then learn how to pay on it, it can help them, right?
Correct? Yes, ma'am. And
okay.
We need credit.
Okay.
We need the credit utilization, and the credit revolving credit is very, very, very important. But it's better for us to understand it first before we get it, before we mess ourselves up with it.
Exactly. Education. I think it should start in the schools. It really should start coming to the schools. We should be teaching our kids. They are starting to do more programs, I've noticed, with apps on the phone and having the kids to be responsible with that. Okay. But it has to be taught from a young age. And then the next generation. So we're going to be talking about some more aspects in the future on the whole prospect of the Black home ownership, and my desires to see that number changed.
Yes.
One household at a time, between buying homes and educating on buying the homes and the financing. I want to see that. If you have any questions, we'll have a link where you can just kind of shoot your questions over topics that you want us to discuss on how we can bridge this gap of wealth equality within this great country of ours. And I think we've pretty much tackled everything that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to just read this one quote.
Yes.
It was from Martin Luther King, and because you always hear this, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And he said, "It's all right to tell a man to lift himself by his own bootstraps, but it's cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps." So we as a community, African American community, we need to define ourselves and ask ourselves, are we still bootless? Are we still bootless? Or do we have every opportunity available that we just have to avail ourselves to? Those are my final thoughts. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you. We are not bootless anymore.
No.
We can actually not just wear the boots, but we can make them, and then we can reproduce them and sell them to others. So we're going to talk about sharing information. So I want to encourage you, if you're watching this podcast and you need information on what it's going to take for you to buy a home. I'm a loan officer. This is a passion of mine. It's what I do, not just because there's a commission attached to it, but because I literally want to see people accomplish the what we call the American dream, but just to understand how powerful it is. So we are not bootless, and we're gonna do our part, and that's why we're here. So those are my thoughts. Like you said, take advantage of the information, and I will say this, don't listen to people who are not where you want to go.
Whoop, that's good. That's good.
I had a person who was calling me and this and that, and I said, well, where are you getting this information from? Uncle Johnny that's never owned a home, that's never moved out of the neighborhood. So just surround yourself.
Yeah, that's good.
With people who, I don't want to say mimic, but who you can see yourself in. If you can see yourself in that person, go ahead and surround yourself with the type of positive energy that you need to accomplish the things that you're believing for.
Love it. Well, that's all we have for today. We want to just thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back at another time.